Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, welcome. Today we are talking about a DC fanfiction called A Human's Touch. Details about this fanfiction will be in description below. There is some salt and there is some bashing, just to put that out there. But this fic follows Jason, and at this point he's been around for a while now, as in kind of back in the family for a while now. Been rocky though. Some not doing too well, but he follows her rules, no killing, no doing whatever, but it's always not really good enough, right, for Bruce. Always finding some type of fault, too violent, you almost killed someone, you're being too reckless. It's never quite good enough. And so this is kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back at this point, right? At this that it comes out of nowhere, where his relationship with all of them are kind of like, you can see Dick and Barbara kind of miss who he was, which is a kid, even though it's like he didn't really treat him all that great when he was as a kid either. But okay, that kid is dead. He's not coming back, right? Damien just doesn't like him. Great. Tim, and very valid, but they've had like a better relationship, but still a little rocky, but still better than everyone else's. Cass doesn't really understand, so there's not much to really connect with. But that night is when Bruce comes like out of nowhere and immediately starts attacking you, and he's like, what the hell is going on? And apparently Black Mask is dead. He had been shot. It's like, okay. And so like none of them even believe him either. Like, Tim kind of stands off to the side because he's like, he wants to say something but just can't. And Damien kind of 100% believe like, oh yeah, you definitely did it, right? And so he's like, I didn't do it until finally it was was it Cass looking at his body language shows that he's not lying, that he really didn't do it. And so now Dick kind of feels bad. It's like, oh, well, really? Like, you didn't believe him at first? And so that's the point where he's like, you know what? He gives up. He's like, I don't even care anymore. It's like, I don't know why I try. And so he gives up and leaves. And he walks off because Pit Madness kind of taken over for a bit. And that's where he hears, cries coming from an alleyway, like from a kitten. And he sees 4 kittens. Definitely, some of them are already dead, right? There couldn't be more than a couple hours old. Some of them are already dead. And the mom is nowhere to be seen, probably not coming back. But one of them is very clearly still alive. So, and he doesn't know what possessed him to do it, but he does just take the kitten and goes to the nearest vet. But because this is Crime Alley, they even said that we don't have the equipment. This isn't really the best place to get her care. And so, but she does give him recommendations of formula and if he wants to try and keep the kitten alive. And he takes it really serious too. And so this kind of begins his journey of healing, but therapy, but through taking care of a cat or a kitten. He arrives at the vet as under alias Jackson Peters, and this is when the kitten immediately kind of wakes up and it's meowing nonstop, but because the vet is taking them. But as they're checked over, he warns Ricardo, who's the vet, warns him that, oh, you're aware, just to be clear that they might not survive, even after everything, and even how much you want them to, how much work you put into it, they might not survive. And Jason, of course, is aware of this, but he's thinking the cat deserves at least someone not to give up on them. So he's down to really spend even when he says oh, it'll be expensive, doesn't care, he'll pay whatever. He's okay with throwing himself into this. He doesn't know why he's doing this, but he's just feels like the cat deserves at least someone to not give up on him. So he's throwing himself all into this. And it's a good distraction. So truly, he really needs this. And checks the cat out. It only has 3 legs, by the way. So it doesn't have like one of its back legs. So so they're talking about future appointments and how they can't keep its warmth. And so it needs incubator. Jason immediately, where can I get one? So he ends up buying incubator, more formula, bottles, the whole thing. He's prepared. He's taking it seriously. And the kitten is already clearly very attached to him, considering the vet immediately when it took them, it cried out. And they wouldn't stop crying out until its eyes aren't open or anything, obviously, but until it felt that it was back in Jason's hands. Immediately, okay, it's attached. Fantastic. And so, but after getting home and setting up everything and feeding the cat and setting a timer to every 2 hours feeding it, that's when he sees, his phone. Bunch of missed calls, texts, he hasn't answered. This is when he doesn't respond to any of them, but he does look them over. And he's, because there's a bunch of I love yous, I'm sorry, like, I didn't know what to do, and he can understand him. That's a whole little, well, because he's like trying to justify, and he says like, well, Bruce can, like, he wouldn't do that, or he wouldn't do, he's trying to like justify, like, well, Bruce wouldn't do that, and then kind of does, and it's like, oh, oh no, right? At least Kaz, she just doesn't trust him. Fantastic. Damien doesn't care. For Dick, it hurt a lot because it's like, for as much as you say I love you and how much you miss him, didn't really do anything to defend him at all. To be like, okay, let's slow down, let's wait. Like, it's like there was nothing until after it all happened, and then that's when it's like, well, I'm sorry, like, oh, I miss you, like, I love you, like, that's where it all comes. Since then, it's been like a week of taking care of this cat, which, he's grateful for because it's, the cat is clearly still alive and not dying or dead. And he's falling into a routine of, waking up every 2 hours to, feed it. Not that he gets much sleep. And even before the alarm goes off, the cat, is always like clockwork, meowing because it's hungry. So really, timer not completely necessary. But he takes to the vet, gets them checked out again, and they're growing and they're doing completely fine. He was kind of worried though, because, kitten hasn't really opened his eyes, but born prematurely, so not really gonna, do that yet or be kind of a normal size, but they are gaining weight, so he's pretty happy for that. And he had told, he hasn't been on patrol, and he had told people that he wouldn't really be like out for, at least 2 months. Like, he'd be out for 2 months because, he didn't say anything, but because he's taking care of something, a personal project. He wasn't going to say, I'm taking care of a cat. So he's not really going to be in action, at least for 2 months. And he's been, obviously, they have nonstop, not like continue to text him, and he hasn't responded to any of them except 2 of them, right? Because Roy, Tim, okay, well, first off, Tim, he didn't respond to Tim, but Tim was kind of like, his text was like kind of questioning it. He's like, well, because he's like, well, Bruce was in his right mind, and like, I'm sure he's already kind of texted you, like, he's already messaged you about how he's sorry, and it's like, no, he hasn't. He has not. It's been radio silent. Him and Damien are the only ones who have not texted or called anything to reach out to him. They do not care, right? And so, but he reads his messages and it's like, ooh, it's kind of sad. But Roy actually reached out to Jason because he heard about the situation. He's like, are you okay? Like, just to make specific, like, really sure, to make sure that Jason's not going to do anything, right? Because he knows that he was suicidal. And, because Jason had never said anything, but he didn't really have to because the signs were there and Roy just noticed. And so he was reaching out to make sure it's like, because he knows how much this would hurt him, right? Emotionally, because it's like, that's gotta suck, right? And so he reaches out, like, are you okay? Like, do you ever need someone to talk to? I'm here for you. So he's the one person that he can respond to. So he's one of the people he responds to. And as Jason was reading it, he thinks he hasn't really felt suicidal because, he hasn't really had much to think of because he's fallen into that routine of taking care of the cat. So there's not much else to really think about other than just, the cat. He's just kind of let that consume him and gives him something to do and occupy his mind. And he really, especially hasn't even thought about it, because now that it's brought up, he really isn't going to do it because it's like, who's going to take care of the cat if I'm gone? So he's like, really not going to. And then Dick, surprisingly, being the other person, and how Bruce's habit and how he is, and how he's even hit Dick before. So it's like, he's gets a little out of control sometimes. And so Jason, as reading this, he looks at this like, wow, not even he's safe, like the golden boy of the family, like Jesus. And so he, the only thing he responds with after all of that is to look at the footage of from when he kind of first debuted, which is when they first faced off, which would be when he got his throat slit. So like, ooh, uncomfortable. But like that, you know, none of them really know about that night. So he's like, oh, he just says, look at the footage from that night. And so Dick, of course, is happy he responded, tries calling, doesn't, not that he declines it, he just kind of leaves it. He just unanswered because he doesn't want to talk to him. That was his one thing. That's it. He doesn't want to talk to him fully right now, though. Since then, another week went by, and he's basically went back to his routine and basically ignored his phone entirely. Doesn't want to see any messages or the calls. Doesn't care. He's gone back to caring for the kitten, and he was happy that their eyes kind of somewhat open, not completely, but he was happy that okay, at least they're starting to open their eyes. And takes him to the vet. Everything's fine. They're good. And this is where at this point, again, they're not completely out of danger zone yet. So Jason's completely already attached anyway. He doesn't. There's no point. He's already attached. And that's where, because he gets their gender checked. It's like, okay, is it a girl? It's a girl, right? Yay, surprise, right? And that's where Ricardo asks him, like, oh, well, I could put her name as Assistance. Like, you have a name? And of course he has a name, but now saying it out loud is like kind of embarrassing. But he's like, Princess. And so he's not, they're going to be spoiled, obviously. That's like, Carl makes a comment, like, oh, she's going to be really spoiled. And of course, Jason doesn't say it, but like, obviously, he's already thinking about, oh, she will look cute in like little dresses that he could buy. But again, like 4 to 6 weeks, she'd probably be out of the danger zone. But for now, he's really hoping, like, oh my God, don't die. She's fine, right? She won't, but precautions and all that. And so he falls back into the routine, and he feels like, Jason kind of is like, he feels like he should feel stuck, but he doesn't. He feels relaxed because it's so just repetitive and mundane of him just kind of taking care of this cat. And then when he's not doing that, he goes out to the store and to get things and then go back to caring for the cat. So he should feel stuck, but he doesn't. He feels relaxed. He feels more focused, especially since he's never really had to care for anything, and he's never had anything or really anyone depend on him in that way of like this sort of care of like they're gonna die. So it's a new feeling for him. Jason then looks at the messages because, of course, right, been ignoring it for a week, And oh boy, this is when they find the footage. So we're like looking through stuff at first, and she was already mad at me because she already kind of knows what happened, right? And so but she doesn't know what happened specifically. She knows about the other instances, but not the one where he was left on the roof. That's an incident she doesn't know about. So she was already pissed off. Then we kind of see like through the days, because like 3 years ago, and it's like, oh, a day ago, whatever, right? We see, and she's like, what the fuck? Like, what just happened? And so she, it was a big, because everyone had watched it. All of them did when they finally got a hold of the footage. And it was like a gigantic shit show, right? And she was even thinking about, like, she had been for a while since she didn't live in the manor anymore, about going solo and whatever. But this kind of definitely solidified it, right? And then you have everything exploded. Dick started yelling, of course, because he's like, him saying, like, I turned a blind eye when you took your anger on me, but I'm not going to turn a blind eye. I'm not going to let you do that to them, which is a lot to unpack because that says a lot. What? And Damien, like, even Damien has like this shocked look on his face. And Jason can't help but feel like a little bit hurt, but he understands it. They're not really that close. So, of course, why wouldn't he be betrayed that, Bruce ended up hurting Dick plenty of times? Because Dick practically raised Damien, all right? That's his father figure. Like, okay, we're not shocked at this. So he's a little bit hurt that it took Dick, like him seeing that his father figure was hurt by Bruce to really come to the conclusion, right? But they're not really that close, so you can't really blame him or anything. And then we go to Tim and him kind of saying it. He's like, well, that was a lot. It's like, that was a lot because, again, he also got his throat slit by him. So he's like, that was a lot. That was a lot. Wow. And so he says something like, how, like, even if Bruce was sorry and he apologized, that Jason didn't need to forgive him, right? He didn't need to follow, Tim's example, because Tim had already forgiven him for everything, but he didn't need to follow his example and forgive Bruce, like, even if he was sorry. He's not owed that. And to Jason, he really needed to hear that because he felt like, well, if Tim could forgive him for slitting his throat, then he should probably, forgive Bruce for it. And it's like, it's not really how, like, you don't have to follow by his example. Like, he can, on his own time, decide when he's forgiven Bruce. After that, you can see through, like, the rest of Tim messages and, like, Dick's too, because he does end up calling a bunch of times before just kind of texting because he's not going to pick up, that they all just kind of end up breaking off at that point, right? Everyone decides, you know what? I'm leaving. I'm leaving. Dick ends up taking Damien. He's gone. He's gone to Bloodhaven. Like, he can't do this. Like, he's done, right? He's leaving. And even in text, he says, like, Steph says, leave you alone. Didn't even know they were close, right? And he's like, I guess I failed her too. And so, but he doesn't end up like, yeah, he leaves them alone. Like, he leaves him alone, and he's saying, I fucked up, right? He's like, I messed up as a brother. I love you so much, and yet I haven't even properly shown you that I really have. And, he's like, I'll never forgive myself for this. Like, even if you do, like, I'll never forgive myself for this. It's like, please take care. And it's like, ooh, this is the point where everyone's just kind of broken off, huh? Everyone's just going their separate ways. After that, it's been 2 weeks since he's basically been ignoring the messages and phone calls, whatever, like his phone, right? And he's fallen right back into routine of taking care of Princess, making sure she's okay, and getting her together. And since then, she's opened her eyes, taking shaky footsteps, and he may or may not think that Ricardo's kind of cute because, of course, he does. Because he likes how enthusiastic he is and how caring he is. And it's like, maybe that's because, obviously, the vet, and like this is a cat that he kind of like they might die, but something about like how he's very, passionate about it. It's like, okay, well, so he kind of has, well, a thing for Ricardo maybe, but at the very least he thinks he's very cute. He has run into a problem though, which is that because she's opened her, like Princess opened her eyes at this point now, um, she gets anxious, so she doesn't want Jason to leave. Every time he leaves, meows constantly, right? Anytime out of sight. So because of this, can't exactly leave to go to the store. And he doesn't really want to take her with him because that doesn't seem safe at all. So he's like, okay, well, I could at least contact someone to do it. So, which leads him to check his messages. So he ends up going through them and like, his people, some of his goons, like they're checking in on him, and like he didn't really completely know what the situation was. None of them did. They were kind of speculating. It had something very clear to do with the bats and situation with the fake person who was dressed up as Red Hood and shot like Black Mask. So they thought, their theory was like, okay, the bats probably thought that um, that Hood had got someone to do it to like send a message. Not that, oh, they actually thought it was you. And they're like, aren't they detectives? How? But okay. Um, so now that they're like clear on the situation, even going as far to be like, you want us to beat them? You want us to beat them up? He's like, don't do that. You're going to throw in Arkham. You are going to get your ass handed to you thrown in Arkham. Don't do that. But it shows like the lengths they're willing to go, like how much they really care about him, right? So it's not like, oh, it's a job. Like, they really do care about him, right? And you messages from like Steph and Tim and how they're doing. They're now bunking together, right? I mean, Steph was already living with one of her friends because again she had moved out of the mansion or the manor, and Tim had moved in with them. So now roomies, roomies, and they're patrolling together. Um, and they, and he kind of gives a reply to Steph saying, because she was like, well, I can't, because she can't visit, like they can't, none of them do visit Allie as like themselves, like a vigilante selves, but as themselves, they can absolutely do it. So he gives the clear, like, I'll tell the like my people that, you're on your own, you're kind of solo now, so whatever you're doing is your own business and not the bats. So they're allowed to visit, Crime Alley and do whatever, somewhat. And Steph then proceeds to annoy him with emojis, and he's like, what is this? And then Tim texts him, it's like, did you see Steph's emojis? I don't know where she found them. I don't know what she's doing. If she sends you, then block her. It's like, I can't do that, unfortunately. I live with her, but still. So Jason felt like being annoying, so he copy and pasted it and like sent one of the emojis. He's like, oh my god, not you. And so Tim just ends up blocking him. And he's like, he takes it as a compliment, obviously. And then he ends up Roy, right? He hasn't checked him in with him in a while, and so you can see Roy kind of increasingly growing worried. He's like, so when he finally responded, he's like, oh, thank God, you're okay, you're alive. You thank God. And so when he does end up texting, and this is where he's the person who goes to. It's like, I need your help. And so all he knew, again, what anyone else knew, was like a personal project. So when he finally shows pictures in a video, he's like, oh my God, please tell me you didn't name it something stupid. And Jason's like a little offended. He's like, I'm not that bad with naming things, but obviously named it Princess. And he's like, that cat has you wrapped around its paw. Like, it's over. So he's the one who goes to, and like, he needs help with his little I need food situation. But that's where it ends for now. And that's all that I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, bye.